Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and you're probably wondering what the hell I'm doing in Marvel Contest of Champions. Well, today what I wanted to do is talk about a theory that I have about why this game has been historically a lot more popular than Marvel Future Fight, and I want to extend this to other games as well. And it basically just looks at why, when you have two games that have the Marvel IP, why one of them can be so much more dominant than the other, despite what I think, in my opinion, are flaws of one game and benefits of another game that don't seem to be attracting larger audiences. Okay, so yes, in terms of the gameplay, these games are different. In terms of the roster, these games are different. Those things don't matter. Oh, MFF has more characters than Contest of Champions. That doesn't matter, right? Oh, Contest of Champions has a more fun gameplay loop because the camera's closer and the characters are bigger, so you can see them, and the actions and the animations are very clear, right? There's not a lot of like shit on the screen that's blocking your view like in MFF. That doesn't matter. Okay, so those things do not matter. Ooh, the music in this game sounds better. You know what? That might matter to a few people. It doesn't matter in this case. What matters is the characters versus the equipment. In a simplified way, in Marvel Contest of Champions, like in other games, like 7 Deadly Sins Grand Cross, etc., once you gamble for a character and you get that character, they are good. The character itself does the vast majority of the lifting, the heavy lifting, the damage dealing, the defending, whatever it is that you needed them to do in the first place, to kill the boss, to beat the other player, etc., etc. The character itself holds the value. Now, of course, there are plenty of ways to upgrade the character, make the character stronger, rank them up, unlock their SIG, you know, get them to SIG 200, etc., right? Get their relic now. Like, there are ways to make the character stronger, of course, and there's a 1-star version of Wolverine, there's a 2-star, 3-star, 4-star, 5-star, 6-star. I understand that, right? There's multiple versions of the character. But in this game, in Contest of Champions, and in other games where you're gambling for characters, this is the key difference I'm trying to, you know, really zone in on. When you obtain the character by gambling, you are obtaining the vast majority of the character's power in the character. It sounds really weird, but it makes perfect sense once you start comparing it to Marvel Future Fight. Okay, so there are things I can do to make Wolverine stronger, right? But whatever they did, whatever the devs did, however they positioned this character, I pulled Wolverine, I pulled Escanor, whatever. The character is strong. Now we make our way over to another Marvel game that we're so familiar with, Marvel Future Fight, and the key difference here is, again, it's not the music, it's not the gameplay loop, it's not that the game is more free-to-play friendly or more pay-to-win, right? You can make any of these arguments for or against Marvel Future Fight. It's not about that. It's about what happens for the player experience when you pull a character, right? So let's take a perfect example here. Professor X, right? What happens when you pull Professor X from the Dimension missions? You're grinding this content day after day, just like Brian Grant is grinding in the arena to get a 5-star Gladiator or a 5-star Sandman or whatever, right? So you're grinding this content every day, and you finally open the chest. Boom! You get your Professor X bios. Now what? He's still trash. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Professor X is still trash. Okay, so you go to your inventory. You grind it up for days and weeks and months, just like, you know, some other YouTuber for Contest of Champions, Seaton or Legacy or whatever. Like, they grinded in the arena for hours and hours for this champion or for that champion, that character. So you grinded for these rank up tickets, etc. So boom, you use the rank up ticket. He's 6 stars now. Is he good? No, he's still trash. Okay, so you use another ticket. You get him to tier 2. Boom, he's still trash. You get him to tier 3. You use all your resources. You pump him to tier 3. Oh, he's still trash. So you've done all this work in Marvel Future Fight, and the character is still trash. Okay, all right, so there's a lot more work to be done, right? Okay, so you rank up the character. Now you got to give them Urus. Now you got to give them an ISO set. Now you got to give them all of this equipment, right? You're giving Professor X all this equipment. You give them an artifact. You give them a CTP. You got to make sure you have good cards, right? You got to make sure you have good cards. Now is Professor X good? Yes. Wait, not yet, not yet. Now you have to buy the uniform. Now is Professor X good? Yes. And therein lies the problem. There is the big, in my opinion, the big problem between these types of games. And it hit me like it was an epiphany for me, and it really shocked me as to how much it made sense once I stumbled on it. In Marvel Future Fight, when characters are strong, it's not because the character is strong. It's because the equipment you gave them and you have for them is strong. And that is what, like, there's a disconnect between the player and the player's experience that I think turns off a lot of players. Because in their mind, it's like, you guys didn't make Jean Grey strong. Like, she is strong, okay? I'm not saying Jean Grey isn't strong, but to a lot of players, when they look at the game, they're saying to themselves, it's not that Jean Grey is strong, it's that the build I gave for Jean Grey is strong, right? It's that the CTP is strong, and the artifact is strong, and that my cards are strong. So in this way, the way that you're viewing the game is that my items are strong, therefore my characters are strong. And in other games, it's like my characters are strong, therefore my characters are strong. So there's this disconnect and this sort of like, it's kind of like an aesthetic breakdown of logic, where, you know, you're told in the mythos, right? You're told in the sneak peeks, you're told in the pre-release videos, you're told in the comics and in the movies, Iron Man is so strong, right? Tony Stark saved the world. He killed Thanos, right? You're like, oh, I can't wait to play as Tony Stark Iron Man. So then you go to Marvel Future Fight, and Iron Man's a piece of shit because you got to get the new uniform, right? And it's not even the one from Endgame. It's this one. You got to get this uniform, which has nothing to do with the MCU anymore, right? You got to give him a specific CTP. You have to make sure you have good cards. You got to go to the details page, and you got to make sure that these numbers, it's all just fucking nerd shit. It's not Marvel. It doesn't feel like it's part of the game. It feels like it's part of a game, but it feels detached from the fantasy of Marvel that the game is supposed to fulfill. Right? So the fantasy that these games are supposed to fulfill is you play as your favorite Marvel heroes and villains. But I'm not really, I am playing as them, but only when I give them these random items that you've told me are good to make them strong, right? Like, you told me that this random uniform for Black Bolt that doesn't appear in any comics or any movies, you've told me that this is good. I have to just accept that it's the truth, and then I have to give him these other items, and then he'll be good. But if I just want to play with Black Bolt as is, dog shit. Just throw him in the bin. He's garbage. And this is, I think, what turns players off from the game. Like, it obviously doesn't turn me off. It doesn't turn every player off. But I think over a long period of time, over years, and over millions of players, right? Because the game has 50 million downloads. Let's say half of those downloads are unique. Anyways, like, millions of players have tried this game, but millions of players are not playing right now. Why? And I think this is part of the reason. There are plenty of other reasons why. You lose your phone, you don't have money, you don't like the whatever, the way the game looks, you don't like the music. Like, there's plenty of other reasons, but I think this is one of the core reasons. And when you look at another game like 7 Deadly Sins Grand Cross, Marvel Contest of Champions, where the focus is on the character being strong without a lot of additional components added in, it not only simplifies the process for players, but it maintains, right, the fantasy, the power fantasy of these characters. So another way of looking at this, if you're still confused, because it took me a long time to figure this out, right? So in Marvel Contest of Champions, when they release a new character, right, they're like, oh, we're going to release Dark Phoenix Jean Grey. She becomes the focus of the update. And if you pay crystal, like if you buy the crystals, it's confusing because in this game crystals is the premium currency, and in Contest of Champions crystals is the shit that you open to get the characters, right? But so in those other games, right, you gamble and you get Jean Grey. Boom, you gambled and you hit the big time. You got a Jean Grey. Like, that's it, it's done. You got what you wanted. You hit the jackpot. Versus in this game, in Marvel Future Fight, what are you gambling for? You're not gambling for characters, right? The gambling aspect is you're gambling for items to give the characters to make them stronger. Do you see how corny that sounds? I'm not saying that I wish Marvel Future Fight was like Contest of Champions. I'm just saying if you look at those two sentences, one of them sounds cool and sort of like feeds into the like superhero power fantasy, and the other one sounds dumb. It sounds like a cheesy mobile game. Guys, I have to go gamble to get a CTP to make to make Captain America strong. Huh? Captain America's not already strong by himself? He's Captain America. No, he's not. I need to give him a mighty CTP of rage, and then I can go and do Dormammu. That's fucking weird. That doesn't make any sense. Wait, hang on. Are your cards good? What the hell does having good cards have to do with Captain America's strength? Well, apparently in this game, it has everything to do with Captain America's strength. And every other character's strength, for that matter. Now, listen. There are reasons why, I'm sort of oversimplifying it, there are reasons why these systems exist, and I know they exist in other ways in different games, all right? I'm fully aware of this phenomenon in games, and I'm not, I'm not just, I know I'm oversimplifying it, but it serves the point very, very well, and it doesn't take away from, like, the reality of why some games are like clearly more popular than other games. Because at the end of the day, as sad as it sounds, players want to gamble, right? Like players want to gamble, and it's kind of like a sad and kind of scary way of analyzing society. I don't want to get too deep into it, but it's true. People want to gamble when they play games, right? For whatever reason, a big part of playing a game is gambling. And you can just go back to like the simplest games you played as a kid. Rock, paper, scissors. It's a gamble. Rock, paper, scissors is a gamble. You're gambling that you're going to choose a better outcome than your opponent, and that you can read your opponent's mind. You're gambling, right? With that. So anyways, gambling is sort of like intrinsically tied to gaming. And so in games like Contest of Champions, you're gambling for the thing that makes the game fun. Does that make sense? In Marvel, Marvel Strike Force, in Seven Deadly Sins Grand Cross, in Genshin Impact, you're gambling for the thing that makes the game fun. The very foundational thing about the game that makes it fun. The characters, right? The characters. And therefore you gamble, you get the character, boom, they're strong. Yeah, sure. If I get the dude's sword, or if I get the Venti's bow or whatever, is she gonna be stronger? Sure. If I get more constellations, are they gonna be stronger? I understand that. But you need the character because they set everything in motion, right? In this game, you don't gamble for the characters. So that like primal aspect is lost. And as shitty as it would be, as expensive as this game would be, if you gambled for characters, I actually think the game would be more popular. If you follow my thesis, it makes sense. So that's basically what I'm saying. If this game had character gambling, I think it would be more popular. Because the thing is, when they release a new character in those other games, right, there's the hype. Oh shit, if I gamble, I'm going to get the new Spider-Man. Let's go! In this game, where's the hype? Right? Oh, we're releasing a new uniform for Spider-Man. You still have to buy the uniform. And you still have to make sure that you have a good build on Spider-Man and that you have good cards. So most of the work is actually not Spider-Man. It's other things. It's your cards, it's your CTPs, it's how much instinct you have from the stupid archive, right? Your alliance level. It's all these other things that are not Spider-Man. And then when they release new CTPs, which they never do, right? So the gambling aspect of this game is also very inconsistent. They almost never release new things to gamble on, but over a long period of time, they have to release tons of new things to gamble on because they're not releasing characters to gamble on. So that's why we have all this shit here, right? We have this like laundry list of like random items to gamble on that just confuse new players, right? And make the game appear greedier, even though it's actually not as expensive as other games. But it's right. Artifacts are basically trying to bring that back. When you see the thesis, it makes perfect sense, right? Because the artifact is like the character's face just slapped on an item. So it's trying to bring back that connection between like, oh, I get Professor X's artifact to make Professor X stronger. So it maintains that power, that sort of power fantasy better than CTPs or cards or Uru, because that shit doesn't really have, it has just like a vague connection to the Marvel universe, right? And it doesn't have a connection to any one character in particular. And there's way too much repetition. That's the other thing, right? Oh man, like you don't get excited to gamble for CTPs. You know you have to gamble for them if you're a whale or you want to get more power, but you're not excited. And then there's just way too much repetition, right? In Contest of Champions, you're almost never gambling for the same character twice. It almost never happens. In this game, you could spend years gambling for the same CTP. Like, do you see how monotonous and boring that sounds? Oh, honey, I'm going to gamble for CTPs of Rage again. Right? It's the same thing, you know? So, yeah, it's crazy to me. It's crazy to me. I know this is a really long rant video. I've wanted to talk about this for a long time. It basically boils down to character gacha versus equipment gacha. And gacha is like, it's not spelled like gotcha, like G-O-T. It's spelled gacha like G-A-C-H-A. And a gacha is, it's like a Japanese game from a long time ago where you would put in a coin and it would give you a random toy inside of an egg. And that was sort of, some people believe that that was the basis for gambling in video games. Like they sort of took that concept and put it into video games in the form of loot boxes. Right? Because it's sort of like a little box. It's like a little egg. And oh, there's like a random prize inside. And it could be like an epic prize or it could be some shit common rarity prize. But yeah, I do think that games that are equipment gachas are almost always less popular. Especially when you compare them across the same IPs. They're almost always less popular than character gachas. Because at the core, people want to gamble. That's the sort of depressing truth. People want to gamble on something when they play a video game, and having them gamble on the thing that brought them to the video game in the first place, that is more entertaining and more riveting, and it keeps their attention for longer than gambling for the items that then have to be the justification for making the character strong, right? Because whatever you make people gamble on is what has to be strong. So the characters themselves are strong, sure, but they get a lot stronger when you give them the right equipment. And that's why the equipment gacha of MFF is the focus financially, right? Like that's where the money goes, right? You don't spend a lot of money getting Hulk. You spend all the money building him up with the right gear, with the right Uru, with the right artifact, with the right CTP. So character gacha versus equipment gacha, and why I think the character gacha version is a lot more popular and has a lot more longevity than the equipment gacha. But yeah, hit me up in the comments down below. Let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching. Smash the like button, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.